12:15 as Bernice walks, makes his grand entrance. And let's Sue do the roll call.
Board Member Barkus.
Here.
Board Member Cease.
Here.
Board Member Chambers.
Here.
Board Member Plake.
Here.
Board Member Jeffrey.
Here.
Board Members Doyle, DeVore are absent, and Chair Reagan.
Here. Need approval of the agenda.
Approved, so motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
With the correction of the added item on the agenda, Mike, right?
Yes, it's the museum
Step.
Museum Steps and Painting.
Approved, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. I was at a graduation, so I wasn't there, so I'm not going to make that motion.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Charlie, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Treasurer's report, Sue?
Our current balance is $627,329. Since the statement was printed, I posted $228,000 from the summer tax revenue so far. We are expected to capture from ad valorem and IFT over $1 million in revenue this fiscal year. I've also provided the check disbursement report since May, and the $11,837.50 capital outlay is from Skyline Electric, and that was for redoing the lights at the Veterans Park.
The new thing we voted on Tuesday, what, the hotel tax, is that just city Grand Rapids? That doesn't apply to us related?
If it's going to be, is it City of Grand Rapids or Kent County?
Oh, maybe it's just.
Kent County, so it's an excise tax.
So,
So it would,
Main Street Inn?
I doubt if it would be something I'll be placing on the.
no, I believe we have to, well, I think the jurisdiction has to agree to do it. It might be something down the road, especially with what might come about up at 96 and Old Nash. But I believe there's amphitheater, if there's arts and educational opportunities in the city of Lowell, I believe those funds can be directed towards it. But yes, everything is basically, all the taxes in the county are basically going to, right at this point, to fund what's going on in Grand Rapids.
It's a tax now.
But the DDA won't be collecting it.
Because I won't be putting it on the tax.
No, it's because it's not a property tax.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions for Sue? She's got a scoop, so we'll need a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Charlie, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Rick, and then Charlie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Public comments for items not on the agenda?
You have one thing, and I apologize for not putting this on the agenda, so I'll keep it brief. Back in May, I attended a demo with Placer AI. It's a software that basically we would be able to place pins around our townships, our city, and it picks up cell phone pings. You don't collect whose phone it is or anything like that. But this software has the ability to give us things like traffic patterns, where people are visiting from, how many places they go to when they're here in town, how much time they spend in town. And during this demo, again, this was back in May, so I had them look at Riverwalk last year, 2023. And they were able to break down details for me, like 16,000 visits, 14,000 of them were unique, even to the level of that when people left the downtown Riverwalk area, they went to Culver's, Myers, and Ball's. And so you can see that kind of percentage. It also has the ability to give you ideas as far as how long people stay in a downtown environment. We could use this, I see applications for the townships, for Fallisburg Festival, for different areas. So really my request to you today is there anyone in the DDA who would be interested in sitting in on a demo? I'd also like to get a couple township representatives involved, because if this is something that we thought we would want to try, it's an annual subscription. If this is something that we would want to try for a year, you know, I'm wondering if there would be joint interest in kind of helping to pay the bill. So I don't know if that kind of sparks anyone's interest, but once you do it for a year, you don't necessarily have to do it for year two. Since having that conversation, I found out that Berry County, ADA, the Southwest Michigan Chamber Group, Downtown GR, and then the Holland Chamber of Commerce are using this software. And then since then, Rockford is also looking at the software. So Rockford Chamber of Commerce and myself, we had a sit down with ADA Business Association to understand how they're using the software. It even gives you, once you take, okay, here's a general population of the group, you're even able to start to decipher general public's other interests, you know, so you have a lot of dog lovers or you have a lot of bicyclists, and that can help to start informed decisions about maybe some retail holes that we could fill, or different amenities that we could bring to the community. So that is a very high level overview. And I'm just wondering, I'm interested, but I don't want to pursue it too deeply without other people kind of at least sitting in for an hour and checking out the software.
I'm a statistics nerd.
I'm very interested. I love AI.
Okay,
What kind of price is it for a year, the subscription?
so the unnegotiated price that they gave me for the size of our community was $18,000. I know that some folks, smaller communities, are getting it for $10,000. That's for the year. You can spread out multiple payments, things like that. ADA is in their second year with it. They've gleaned a lot of their information to help with the development that they did in their new downtown area. So they're feeling pretty comfortable with what they have right now. They are talking about taking their third year off of, you know, I probably shouldn't have said that. Sorry. So it's one of those things that you can revisit it, you know, every few years and come back if you have new questions and things. But what was interesting to me is that for Riverwalk, we say depending on the weather, we'll have anywhere from, you know, 8 to 15,000 attend. And for them to say you had 16,000 people, and then to be able to break, it's all through algorithms, be able to break down this many men, this many, you know, women. But again, it's not getting into your cell phone. They don't know it's Lori Chambers. They just are able to kind of, from the cell phone pings and all the cell system, you know, the cellular networks that they work with, are able to kind of, like I said, aggregate the information and start to make some good guesses. So.
So this information gathering is not a marketing tool?
Correct.
It's a consumer.
Correct. I think if anything, it could inform our decisions, and, you know, as we think about different opportunities for this area, you know, we talk about, you know, expand, what does public art look like? Well, you know, how many people are coming to Lowell with a public art, you know, interest, things like that. How many museum buffs do we have? And I was really interested too in maybe what, like, retail gaps there are. What are people shopping for? So it sounds like Mike and Rick would be interested in a demo.
I'd be interested, yeah.
Okay, thank you. You got a question?
I would be interested.
Okay.
So, definitely be there.
Okay. Mike, Earl, and Rick, thank you so much.
Okay, Sam, thanks. Okay, moving on to old business, talk over a fountain request proposal. We have to take any action on that or discussion on that. We had quite a printout, I sent out at the last meeting, but it was kind of.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we tabled it because there was concerns whether or not we could actually do it for Eagle. So since that time, we did meet with the area rep from Eagle, and the city has submitted an individual permit application for inland lakes and streams to them to install the fountains. Pending permit issuance and contract award, we have 4 to 7 week lead time to receive the fountains, and there would be an independent power supply that would be installed from the old DPW facility, and Public Works is working with an electrician to obtain a quote for that. And then we will be trained to operate and program the fountains as well, and then we would keep them open from April to October. We would have to remove them in the winter. Eagle wouldn't grant a permit if we didn't. at least in my discussion with Eagle when I met with them probably about a month and a half ago. So we are recommending that that the Downtown Development Authority award Summit Landscape Management of Marne to contract to install 2 fountains in the Flat River as proposed at a cost not to exceed $28,850. And there's a bunch of information for you. Full disclosure, I didn't realize this until the last couple of weeks. The river is actually not in the DDA district. However, the whole area surrounding it is. And so technically, because it is, you can make the argument that this would have an impact on the district, you can use funds for it. So it can be used, so.
Plus it's plugged into the DDA district.
Correct. So, and it isn't.
So we've addressed the power source concern.
Yes, yeah, we're gonna just run it off our bill.
Okay.
I just had a couple of questions. Number one, it was first addressed to weed buildup, and the idea was, and I don't think I read anything in here, is it gonna mitigate the weed growth there? And secondly, I got a call from Rich Perry, who does the weed control, that talked to the city council about that too. He thought it would be kind of too late to do anything now to the pond area because the summer's almost over with. You should start that in the summer. So those are two different questions. But is it going to address the weed issue just around where the fountains are? And that was kind of the intent. All that was discussion was before all the kayakers irritated with weed growth and the invasive species, that other stuff.
My understanding always been that, aeration like that will just help move things around, like get rid of the weed. I couldn't tell you that, but, my experience has always been that if you do that, it does kind of, that area around it will, it'll keep it moving, and that's part of the issue with that is it doesn't move. So there would be that, what other eliminate weeds, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, and the other thing that I heard is that because like a waterfall, it does add more oxygen to the water. It's good for the fish, but it's also good for plant growth too.
Oh, yeah.
So the other areas around it might still be.
It could, yeah. I mean, there's a whole, that's an issue that they're working through, but yeah, it's.
Has there been any other info gathered on ways to take care of the problem?
Yeah, we're looking at a couple different ways. I mean, the biggest thing is municipalities do not take this on normally. And I would, to use general fund dollars or PDA dollars, they'll never get my recommendation. And the reason being is it's not a mandated responsibility of the city of Lowell. And the issue is that we have other needs and resources that we need to be focusing on. And if you do that, you're taking away from that. The other issue is that normally these are usually handled through special assessment, and that's the trend statewide. And I'm doing a lot of research on that part of it right now. But this is not. As a matter of fact, to the point where I'm actually about ready to reach out to Eagle to see if we can even look at possibly putting the Flat River in the National Rivers Program. See if there's ways that there can be state resources leveraged for the site. But for the city taxpayer to have to use tax dollars, that shouldn't be a function of the cities, and it will never get my recommendation. But there are some communities that do it.
But we have no idea what kind of cost or what kind of.
Well, right now they have a treatment for like $14,000. My concern is that if the city gets involved, this is going to continue to grow. And it's going to be a point where, the thing is once you start treating it, you always have to treat it. And whether it's 1 year or 2 years, I don't know that, but I know you always have to treat it. And my concern is that as this continues to grow, the expectation is that the city will address it, and that $13,000 is now $100,000 or $125,000. My fear is that 10 years down the road, this is going to be something, and then once you commit it, you can't cut it. And if we ever get into a budget constraint situation, that's my frustration. And unfortunately, from where I sit, I believe the city's been put in position too many times of taking on things financially really, I don't think they should be taken care of. I'm not saying they're not important or anything like that, but they're taking away from, in my opinion, things we should be taking care of. So that's where I stand.
If it were 10, 20,000 a year, and the DDA could take care of that, then, but if it's gonna grow to 100,000, then
Well,
that's a
the-
different story.
And I don't know the answer, but also remember too, there's gonna be a day the DDA doesn't exist. And when that happens, it now becomes the general fund's problem and the general fund's issue. And I don't know what it is, and cities don't normally do this. It's not something, especially no experienced city manager would tell a community, yeah, you should use your tax dollars to do this. I know that for a fact. That doesn't mean that they listen to the city manager, because at the end of the day, it's obviously a policy decision of the city council. And they can make that decision, but I wouldn't recommend that.
Well, it'd be good to come up with some
Right.
potential cures that can be done
Yeah.
before next spring.
Yeah, there is a nonprofit being formed, and there is fundraising available. They're looking at doing fundraising. I've talked to Rich about it quite a bit. Rich and I are continuing to have contact on it. It's not that we're not supportive of it, we are, and if there's ways that I can help with it, I will, but I cannot recommend leveraging city resources towards it, or city revenues towards it, put it that way.
Well, it is one of our highlights of our community.
I don't disagree.
So back to this, placement of these things still is a question in my mind, and such as when you get kayakers and canoeists and so forth out there, especially for like a summer concert, would you then just turn them off?
Option, I would assume. Rich probably answered that question better than I could.
I have a question, kind of a question. When this was first brought to us earlier in the year, we were talking bubblers. And then we went from bubblers to these fountains, which I know that was the big thing talked about last time, was the placement of them.
I don't recall bubblers. I always was under the impression they were fountains.
I thought it was bubblers.
Yeah, I was under the impression it was always fountains.
You know, I don't think we really knew what we could do to mitigate the algae, the weed growth around the shovel, whether it was bubblers or fountains. You know, I don't think that was,
Because they use bubblers in the wintertime or something
That's
out
just
here,
so it
don't they,
doesn't
just
freeze.
so it doesn't freeze.
Correct.
it doesn't
Yeah.
freeze, so that's something different. And I don't know if that affects the, bottom line, they didn't really address the weeds, you know, just
No.
at all. I tried to read through all of
No.
them, and they didn't address that, so there's,
Yeah.
even if we got them, there's no guarantee that it's going
It's gonna
to
help.
It's going to help, and it's kind of leaving some of the.
Yeah, and if, you know, it's obvious, if you decide you don't want to move forward with this, that's your purview as well. It's not, you're not being forced to do this. If it's something you feel that is not going to be a benefit, by all means, you can say no and just.
And if we do, it's something that's not gonna actually go into place until probably next spring.
Most likely don't want. Yeah.
And that's a really good question too. If it's actually detrimental, if we're oxygenating the water and causing more growth
Someplace else.
someplace else, we're really defeating the purpose of, I mean, if it's for the beauty and the attraction of it, that's one
Right.
thing. But if we're really trying to mitigate this growth, it almost sounds like it's counterproductive
Be negative.
Right.
to do that. So I think we gotta be really careful on that, because we don't want to make the river worse, for sure.
Is there anybody that could guide us on that?
I could ask Rich, see what he thinks about it.
I'm also wondering about boats that might, when it's turned off, could a boat.
There's always that risk, yes. There's always that risk.
There's not that many power boats, it's the kayakers,
Mhm.
you know, there's a few.
But
There
there are some.
are a few, yeah.
There is a risk in doing it. There definitely is that.
I have a couple of questions, assuming we do it. I know it needs to be removed each year. What kind of cost does that entail?
Right. And, you know, that's a good question. My staff, we don't have a boat, so, you know, normally, it's normal practice when you do this, a private contractor come out and do it. I don't know what that cost is. We've gotten that far, I guess.
I thought it was discussed that the DPW could be trained on how to winterize.
They could train to winterize them, but we gotta remove them, and we don't have, like I said, we don't have a boat.
Resources.
Fire department has one, correct? I mean, I realize that's,
I know I believe they're getting rid of the boat.
okay.
I believe they're getting, don't quote me on it, but I believe, from my understanding, they're getting rid of the boat. If they may have already got rid of it, I don't know.
Since it really can't happen until next year anyway, I suggest that we table this and we try to gain some more information about some of the
Especially the weeds.
pieces of that information we need to know first.
No problem.
And I certainly want to, I mean, this is, they did a lot of homework to get all this information. I know they do that for a living, but I think it'd be a little premature to jump the gun too, so.
Right.
So we will table that, if it's okay with the rest of the board, and then move on to the Ottawa Street.
Yep, no problem. Just go through all this stuff. The Downtown Development Authority budgeted approximately $192,000 for paving Ottawa Street between Brook and Hudson Streets. On July 16th, we opened bids for this project among several other streets being funded by the local street fund. Michigan Paving was the lowest qualified bidder, and the city received bids significantly lower than estimated, allowing for the addition of more streets to the project. The Ottawa Street portion of the bids was $105,000. If approved, paving will begin later this summer and then early this fall. It should be completed by the time asphalt plants close for the season. I've attached a proposal also for construction engineering. The cost for the Ottawa Street portion of that task is $6,200. Total project cost, including the previous design engineering, is going to be about $75,000 less than we budgeted. I recommend that the Lowell Downtown Development Authority approve the bid to repave Ottawa Street at a cost not to exceed $105,000 and approve the construction engineering task provided by Williams & Works for a cost not to exceed $6,200. So just so you're aware, we meshed this project with, there were all the crossover streets basically in the Monroe area here. We, all the side streets up to Washington and some parts Jefferson, we're planning to pave as part of this phase of this year's street projects, in addition to obviously what's going on with Washington Street right now. The bids were so good that we were able to add Maple Street, which is adjacent to Ottawa. We were also able to add King Street. There was a stretch at King Street that wasn't addressed from Jefferson to Jackson. Washington to Jackson, or Washington to Jefferson. And then there was a stretch there was a stretch from High Street from Jefferson all the way till it ends past Division that we were able to add. And if you look at those streets, they're awful. I mean, they all are. And just this is the marijuana excise tax doing benefit for the community. We're paving more streets now than we've done in the last 50 years. And then on top of it, there's a small sliver, Grand Street, adjacent to Maple. We think we can do that as well. So we can get a lot of streets done before the end of this year. We still have to do restoration in the spring because that always has to be done. But it's just, we've done a lot of streets, and that's the biggest. That's the biggest complaint I get. I'm happy that we can do these things.
Why do you think the prices are coming in so much lower?
I think it's the quantity of work, how we've structured so we've gone very large areas. Every project I've done, in the last couple of years, they've always come in under. We also estimate, we also are very conservative because you want to be conservative when you do this.
Right.
But the bids came in, the original bid before we came in, just for the local street portion, came in about $600,000 less than we budgeted. And so it's like, well, let's do more streets. So.
Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll move to make that motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Lisa? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Monroe Street, Island.
Yeah, Susie, can you pull that up?
Yes.
I want to take your mouse with me.
Okay.
Not that one here, I got it. Turn it around, Dr. Jones. All right. So, I know we've talked about getting moving on this. I'm kind of holding off, obviously, with all of the construction that's going on over here. I'd like to just do this in the spring, and it gives us a little more time. What we're basically doing at this point is we're looking at putting an island. This island here is Main and Monroe, and then we're looking at a second island at just past Avery on Monroe. The intent of this is to do a couple things. The main thing is, as I've stated before, we're trying to do two things. We're trying to get truck traffic off of Monroe Street. Our residents on Monroe, we get complaints all the time. It is an issue. It's been an issue for years, and now that the road is paved fully, it is something that we need to fix. The other issue is that left-hand turns coming off of Monroe are very dangerous, and so we want to address that. But then we also want to make it, we want to make an aesthetic enhancement there, and so forth. So I've had conversations with at least a couple of the businesses about what's going on, and I probably want to engage them a little bit more and show them this. The thought process is obviously putting this here, is putting the island here to keep the trucks off. And then maybe a secondary island so they don't go down it, where we can maybe put signage in place to divert them away. We also wanted to make sure that there is truck traffic that goes into where Flat River and this area here. We wanted to make sure there was a way that we were doing something so we weren't impacting them. Obviously, coming down Monroe is going to be an issue, but if they go a block over, come back, then I don't see it as a major inconvenience. One of the issues we have too is really at peak times when Atwood's changing shifts. We have a lot of speeding traffic down this road, and I'm trying to find ways with this to hopefully maybe kind of calm that traffic a little bit. One of the suggestions I've been given is, in addition to this, maybe put stop signs. We have, make this intersection at Main and Avery a four-way stop. I like the idea. My police chief and my public works director don't, and that's something that we're, once I think I want to go back and talk to the property owners, to the business owners here, and just kind of keep, let them up to speed of what we want to do. I talked to Rich about that the other day, but go back to the city council and see what they think about that before we move forward. So I kind of slowed it down a little bit just because of all the construction in this area, but that's where we're at this point. The other thing is we did provide you with some. In your pack, there's a couple. Like, one of the things is obviously this is Monroe and Main. This is what it would be landscaped. It would look aesthetically pleasing, but we would these are the types of vegetation we would look at having in the location. So it would look a lot. It would be an enhancement, but I think it would also hopefully. My intent is ultimately to try and get the trucks away from it.
And it would stay lower ground cover?
Yes, it'd be lower ground cover, yeah. So that's where I'm at with it. And right now, the estimate is still under, we budget $100,000. The estimate's still right now about $81,000. If we wanted to put, I didn't include it, but if we actually wanted to put actual parking stalls in, it's an additional cost. Let me pull it back up. I'll show you where we're looking at putting them. We looked at putting them just in front of City Hall, 3 spaces here. We had looked at possibly putting a stall there. I don't like that idea at all. Even though it'd be an enhancement, I think there's too much. And, you know, just if we decided to put the 3 parking spaces there, we could.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, does that really stop a truck from coming through? Are they just gonna run over it?
I can tell you trucks hate those things.
Okay,
Will the occasional truck run over it? I'm not gonna say they won't.
right.
I know this for a fact because I have a council member who is a trucker, who hates them. And I know from my former community that we had them and trucks hated them and they would avoid them.
Okay.
But there were the trucks that, you know, on a heavily or traveled roadway, we had something like that where they did get hit more. But this is not well, it's deemed a major street. It's more of I would consider it even though it's not technically classified, that's why I would call this more of a local collector road rather than a main thoroughfare. And usually where you have the bigger issues is on the main thoroughfares.
We just visited Hastings, and they have put a bunch of new bump outs.
Mm-hmm.
The thing we noticed is they had some very attractive giant posts. They kind of look like, our light poles. You know, they matched what was in the city, but they were probably 4 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if that would be helpful at all in that area, but if you get a chance, go to Hastings. They've really upgraded their downtown section, and it looks really nice, and they've obviously got some bump outs that make a big difference on traffic slowing down, making walkways and stuff that are much safer.
Yep. I'd be happy to look at that.
You know, they only have the Memorial Day parade where the band comes down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one time a year. I don't know if they can negotiate around that, if they know it's there ahead of time.
My son's watching that. I'll see what he thinks about it.
Yeah.
So the second one you're talking about adding, is that included in our cost
Yes.
from when we discussed this
Yes.
before?
Yes.
The 4-way stop, I don't know. I mean, this is my travel in and out every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right, the speeds are high on this road.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they why do the police officers not like the 4-way? What's their?
Their concern, well, their concern is that it's an enforcement issue, that traffic control devices don't necessarily correct the problem. The issue is that we don't, you know, I don't have, well, right now, hopefully we will soon, you know, we have multiple officers a shift, being able to address that. You know, the officer's not gonna always be there. And the other concern is they're concerned that it might back up traffic coming in inbound off of Main Street. That is their concern. So that is a legitimate concern. I would almost rather like to test it to see if that is actually a concern. I don't know if I would want to put a 4-way stop as a permanent solution to start. I would want to at least test it and be able to you know, if we didn't think it worked, then, you know, revisit that.
No, down here. Where the school is. I'll forget to stop.
And you don't want a roundabout.
Give me the first one to get.
Myself, I have no issues with roundabouts if they're placed properly. I have some members of my council who don't feel that way.
I'm what? Yeah, that's.
And
what
he's
you
made
just
it
said,
very
like-
clear.
Very much so.
Well, we had one guy that did a walkability study,
Mhm.
and somebody mentioned, what about a walkabout or a roundabout at Hudson and M21? Oh, yeah, we can do it.
Well, I love Dan Burden, but yeah, MDOT doesn't feel the way he does. And like I said, actually, if you had more space, a roundabout would work there, but it's not going to happen. You need a wider area for
A little
that.
bit, yeah.
Especially for the traffic that goes through there. But roundabouts, if put in the right spot, they work. If not, they're awful. And that's the people's frustration. And then a lot of people aren't going to use them. But if you don't want to use them, that's
So the
fine.
sign you've had out here since, you know, this has been closed, I've seen where it looks like it's working, but I've also sat behind trucks. that are trying to still make the corner here,
At Riverside or, oh,
right here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because of the construction, it's
Yeah.
closed, and they get down here, and then they're like, oh no, what do I do now?
Right.
I think this looks like a good idea. I think it'll make it look nicer, and I think, there's a lot of foot traffic going down to the Riverwalk and
Mhm.
in this neighborhood, and anything that will slow it down a little bit seems like a good idea.
I think I would avoid the parking spaces. I think that's going to be
I agree.
a lot of clutter.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason being is just try and utilize any space we can for more parking is what, kind of what the thought process was.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be one way in here?
No,
Um,
I think that's gonna cause more problems, because it's gonna cause more confusion making it one way, in my opinion.
Is there room for parking spots then?
They've been able to fit them in, yes.
Okay.
They believe there is, at least that's what
But you're only talking 3.
correct.
I think it seems confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something we could, I have no problem just taking it out if that's what.
From a snowplow maintenance thing.
That's why I kind of went away from the, bump outs are good, and it's not like we can't handle it with the equipment, but bump outs with snow maintenance, that's kind of where I'm not so in favor of putting a bump out there because of the snow removal and so forth.
It's only 3 spots too.
Yeah, it's, as much as you like to get it, anywhere you can, but you're right.
Take them out.
I'd rather, The other suggestion, which I absolutely despise, was angled parking. I don't like angled parking.
I mean, even if we did the second one too, you could always see how it slows things down before you consider that 4-way stop.
Right. Or, you could, even in the meantime, even before you put those in, you could test it, just to see what 4-way stop would do before you put the islands in.
Do we get a free pass? Because I know I'll forget.
So no action on those 3
I'm
items.
just not trying to move, I wanted to move fast on this, but with everything going on over here, it's just, I want to get the other stuff done first.
Well, I think this should wait till spring for sure,
Right.
yeah.
It's a little crazy over
That
there.
don't take too long. I think it can already-
Can we approve it for starting in the spring, or is that?
It's already budgeted, it's just, all that you would have to do is approve bids when they come in.
Gotcha.
But before I would go out for bid, I told Rich I want to at least talk to over here, I want to talk to them, see what they think. And, because they're the ones that are going to be impacted the most by it because of, because trucks, they do have trucks. And I've tried to take into account where the trucks come in now, so we're not in their way, which
How are
is
their
why.
deliveries coming in now, right now?
Some come in through Monroe in there. They're not, there's usually like maybe 1 or 2 larger trucks a day. Sometimes, like the box trucks tend to come down Monroe, but I believe the bigger ones tend to, do use Avery in there. So that was part of the issue of why I put the second one where it was, so it wasn't impacting that. Because I didn't want to affect trucks.
Be a straight shot over to the businesses too.
Right.
And that's just a matter of making sure you communicate with your delivery services.
Mm-hmm. Right. So,
Okay. So no action on that right now. We'll
Yep.
wait till the spring. And museum steps, update on that.
yeah, so the museum accepted a bid and already began the work for painting just the painting, correct?
It's painting and tuck pointing.
The DDA budgeted just under $22,000 this year for the work, and they got about a little over $9,000 from the HD Home Housing or the Historic Commission.
Yep.
And so they've gotten a bill so far for half the work up front, which I believe about $17,950. And then, what was the total bid cost at?
So the total bid for the paint was that's the total cost for the paint, which is over what the bid was because they didn't include the new steps in it.
Right.
And then for the brickwork, it's bid at $16,000 to $18,000. I have all the bid stuff here, if you guys want to see it. And I apologize that we didn't bring this to you before. I brought this to Mike last August with the numbers, and the HDC had gone through all the bids and picked the lowest bids. And Mike had said it was okay to do the painting last budget year, but he wanted us to wait till this budget year for the brickwork.
Right.
And then the way that the painter's schedule worked, they weren't able to come until this year either. So, so we had put it in the in January. We put it in the budget for the DDA to do this work. I did not know that I needed to bring you guys the bids as well. That was never communicated.
Yeah.
But I do have those here today, if you guys want to see them. I brought
So
copies.
basically all we're doing is, I mean, we budgeted the project, it's budgeted. And all we're doing is just taking a step back, just formally approving, even though the bids, if they've already done it, we're just for our record approving the bids, but it's a budgeted project and it's within the confines of what we budgeted. So,
So the total is 22, or is it 22 for the painting and then 16 for the 16 for the painting?
So you guys, the DDA budgeted $21,450.
that's the number.
The HDC budgeted $9,200, which matches what the bids were. The project itself has come in $5,000 over due to the new steps.
But we had already budgeted the steps.
The steps are a completely
Yeah.
separate thing.
Yeah, it's a separate project that we did.
Yep, that's all done and over, yep.
So we just need to approve the extra 5.
I don't think we do, no, I think we just have to approve we just have to approve this, we have 21,000, I believe that's all we need.
The 21.4.
21.4 is all we need. So it's already, we don't have to add extra
Sorry,
funds.
so I-
We just have to approve.
We just have to approve the work.
Okay.
Exactly.
I move we approve the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it is, like I said, it is 5,000 over, so I don't know if there's room in our budget to chip in a little bit more toward that. We are going back to the HDC. They approved 30% of the project, so I think they're hopefully gonna give us more also, but I don't know if the DDA could do part of that.
It won't be an
For the
issue.
historic district?
Yeah.
It's not an issue.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
We just saved $75,000 out of the project.
So do we need to formally approve?
I would add, yeah, you
Just
probably
add
should.
that overage.
Yeah, you should. I mean, even though it's my spending authority, I would just add it.
Okay. Thank you.
Your motion,
I move.
Rick, is there a second?
Second.
Earl? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Should I abstain?
Yes.
So noted. Sue?
Yes.
New business. Any new business? Reports and member comments? Hurricane Girl? Lisa?
Thank you all.
Okay. Wait. Rick, Jared?
I'm good.
We're starting the process of the audio-visual upgrades up here. Rich is working on that. And the Brownfield Authority, and I'm working with Housing Next. We're starting to put guidelines together for the Brownfield Authority and the City Council to consider as we get projects that would be fall under workforce, affordable housing type of opportunities. I met with them last week, so they're going to be working with me on that. I'll probably engage in the Brownfield Authority at some point to walk through that. Just a lot of construction downtown. We do anticipate the street reopening either August 20th or August 21st. So we said 30 days. It's right now about 35, 36 days, which is really kind of within line with what we said. And I I know it'll be nice to have that back reopened.
Okay. No other comments from yours, Julie, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Lori, is there a second?
Second.
Kevin? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Stay here.